It's a Northwest News Radio weekend. Here's Tom Hutler and Shannon O'Kelly with more IRG Health Talk.
All right, our first guest today is Jennifer Saam, a podiatrist at Bellevue Podiatry, and she practices what she preaches, to say the least, because she's also a runner, so she has to know a little bit about podiatry and reducing some of the pain and maintaining that. Shannon, we're going to talk about, or she's going to talk about some of the ways to reduce stress as you are out there on the roads.
Yeah, you know, when you start preparing to participate in a running activity, I mean, what are the pitfalls? And Dr. Saam is going to talk about some common injuries and how to avoid those injuries if you're preparing or you start running or you're running right now. So good stuff. Dr. Saam, welcome to Health Talk. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk to you. About 2 or 3 weeks, plus or minus, I don't know, just recently, we had the Boston Marathon. And, it's good to see those marathons and those runs and activities, particularly sports and sporting activities, getting back in place. You know, it's been a long time. And I'm going to talk to you about, some running injuries and things you can do to run healthy. You're a podiatrist. Obviously, you take care of the lower extremity a lot. You're also, I understand, a runner. Tell us about your running habit. Can I call it a habit?
You can. So I have been a runner since I was in high school and ran through high school and a little bit in college, and then probably got into it a little bit more when I was in my 20s. Up until now, I'm in my late 40s, so continue to do it. Run a little bit of everything. I still like to race. I belong to a club team locally, and so I still compete and have runner friends on the team. And so I partly run just for my own health and enjoyment, but I do really like competing and keep doing that. So it's something you can definitely do for your whole life if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. Now, you have an advantage here because you also have a medical background and you have this recreational running background. Tell us about your practice. Kind of interesting to find out if you have an area of specialty since you're a runner, if you work in certain areas, diabetic feet. I mean, what do you do in your practice?
Yeah, so I'm in a solo private practice in Bellevue. And by choice, my practice is kind of a mix of podiatry things. So I do see all ages. I see a variety of different foot and ankle problems. I do have a special interest in athletes and runners just because of my own background. And so I think it helps me give, good advice. And I know a lot about the shoes. I know a lot about the different places around here where people run. And I think people seek me out, based on my profile online, or they hear from a friend that I run. Often runners like to seek out people who they think will understand, sort of what their experience has been. So I think that's helpful, but I do see a variety of things in my office.
Why podiatry? Where was your interest? How was it sparked? How did you become interested in that area of work?
Yeah, well, I knew even back in high school that I wanted to go into the medical field, but I wasn't sure what specialty until I was actually living in Boston after college and was doing a lot of racing and was going to do the Boston Marathon, and met some podiatrists at the big pre-race expo for Boston.
Oh, wow.
And they were talking to people about running injuries and training and biomechanics. And I thought, that seems really interesting. So that's, I spent some time in their office volunteering just to check it out. And it was a really good fit.
Well, I mean, that's amazing. Your story is unbelievable. Your interest in running led to a profession, and here you take care of runners. Let's get started. I want to ask you some questions from your standpoint. One, being a runner and being a podiatrist, what do you think the most common injury you see with runners?
So that would probably be plantar fasciitis, which is a type of inflammation and pain that's on the bottom of your heel. And anybody can get it, but it is probably the most common thing that I see in runners.
Is that, in your opinion, being a runner, is it a change in shoe wear? Maybe your shoe wear wears out, different terrain, different distances? What do you think causes that? And how can I prevent it?
Yeah, it's much more common to see it in someone who's either a new runner or maybe ramping up their mileage or intensity compared to what they had been doing before. I mean, there's kind of a running injury mantra that's too far, too fast, too soon. And so that's if someone's maybe doing a lot more mileage than they used to, that's a little bit too quick for their foot to respond to. Or, maybe their shoes aren't quite as supportive enough. Everybody's feet are different, and healthy running feet can look a lot of different ways, but, just trying to be guided to a certain kind of shoe that would give your foot the best support, that can really help to prevent to prevent overuse strain. Like the plantar fasciitis is basically an overuse injury of this big band of tissue that is on the bottom of your foot but attaches on your heel bone.
More with Jennifer Saam, podiatrist at Bellevue Podiatry, and Shannon O'Kelly next on Northwest News Radio.
It's a Northwest News Radio weekend. This is IRG's Health Talk. Back to Tom Hutler and Shannon O'Kelly.
We're back with Jennifer Saam, podiatrist, talking about making sure that you're doing the best you can to prevent injuries when you're out there on the roads. Here's Jennifer and Shannon O'Kelly.
Dr. Saam, again, thank you so much for joining us here on Health Talk.
Thank you.
I love your enthusiasm. It's obvious you are, working in your profession and recreating your profession as a runner and then treating runners. We're talking about plantar fasciitis. You described a lot of reasons why you might get it. That's a tough one. It's the number one, but it's also the number one difficult one, in my opinion, sometimes to take care of and get it to calm down. What do you do? What do you recommend?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is maybe cut back on your mileage a little bit, whether you're a runner or a walker. So you back down a little bit. I mean, your heel is telling you something. If it's hurting, you need to, cut back a little. Make sure that you have good support in your shoes. Don't go barefoot, even at home. I think we often like to kick our shoes off at home, or more people are working at home, especially during COVID.
Oh, yeah, right.
And putting around barefoot. So without the support on your arch when you're walking around your house, that's also time where you need to have a good pair of shoes or slippers. Stretches, both for your Achilles as well as the plantar fascia. So basically, if your foot is flexing up towards you, where you feel a stretch in your Achilles and a stretch in the arch, that's the direction that you want to go. Ice is much better than heat.
Yeah.
So, icing right on the sore spot. You can put a bag of frozen peas or corn if you don't have an ice gel pack. Drop it on the floor and just nestle your heel into that. That can really help. Gentle massage. So you can, even if you have a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball at home, you can buy a special nubby ball at the local running shoe store. Works well too. Just gentle massage on the arch and the bottom of the heel.
I like it.
And then, sometimes everyone's a little mixed on whether they like to take anti-inflammatories like ibuprofen or similar, but they can help because the fascia is inflamed. So it's not just masking the pain, but using ibuprofen if you need it, that's also one tool in the toolbox.
That fascia you're describing is this fibrotic band of tissue, and so you just have to get it calmed down. Hey, so we got plantar fasciitis, number one. Number two, what do you think number two is in your opinion?
Yeah, so for runners, this would be toenail injuries would probably be number two. Yep. Often it's when, your foot is sliding in the shoe and it's hitting against the inside toe box of the shoe, whether shoes are too small or you're doing, often hills, your foot will slide around a little bit more. Number one, make sure your shoes are long enough and wide enough. Keep your nails trimmed really short. And then if you do get a blister under the nail, if it's something that you feel comfortable doing, you can drain a little bit of the fluid on your own. Do some soaks in warm water with Epsom salts. That can really help. If it's not calming down, I would see a podiatrist. The nail does not always have to be taken off, but sometimes that's an option.
We are totally out of time, but we totally had fun, didn't we? I mean,
great time.
But you're coming back. We're going to have you back on. We're going to do a little series here on running injuries because, the weather is getting nice. People will be out moving around. We're going to ask you about your top 3 and number 4, okay? Does that sound good?
Sounds great. That sounds great.
That was Jennifer Saam, podiatrist at Bellevue Podiatry. You can reach her or get more information at BellevuePodiatry.com. Shannon, it's so important, things like, proper shoes, fixing your gait if you have some sort of overcompensation, all kinds of things can lead to some injuries, especially if you're really running those longer distances.
Yeah, enthusiasm is a great thing. I can't tell you how many people I've seen over the years that start a running program and go out too fast, and they create some kind of injury, and then it eliminates and it stops them from running, so their activity is diminished, right? So take your time. Assess your injuries, let your body talk to you, and the things that Dr. Saam talked about are important to kind of follow through with.
All right, our next guest, Brittany Petrie, after this time out on Northwest News Radio.